Hello class, this is Mr. Fortier, and I'm going to show you today how to make a bar graph using the information that we worked on in our data table the other day in class. So if you'll notice, already I've input my data into the Google Sheet. Okay, a lot of y'all were struggling even after watching the video that I made to try and get the right kind of graph, and I'm going to be a little more precise at this moment to try and help you understand exactly where it went wrong and why it went wrong and how to correct it. It's very simple, and there's no reason for everybody to lose their heads over it because it's actually a very easy fix. So the first thing you've got to make sure, and this was covered in the video before, is that all your dates, which will be how you're going to label the bottom of your graph, should be located in the first set of cells, or the first row of cells across the top. Then your quantified data, or your quantity, or your amount, that information goes here in the second set of rows. In this case, we're talking about the number of increase per day of COVID cases, where we have 3,528 here, 5,000 on the next day, and 836. 8,000, 10,000, and so on and so forth. So we have all this information already plugged in, and that's taken directly from your data table that you guys had in your assignment. So the time stretches all the way from March 20th all the way out here to April 8th, which is this point right here. So in order to make our first chart, we have to make sure that we box in all of these. That means we're going to keep your left click on your mouse down and drag all the way across until you get over here. Okay, once you've put all that into your mouse, or into your mouse, I'm not sure why I said that, but once you put it all the way, all this information is enclosed within the box that you drug across, and you know that you have it all there. Now we're ready to make our chart. So the hard part is inputting the data. The easy part is coming right now. So you go over here to you see these three dots, and usually when you hover your cursor over those three dots, it says More. Click on that. It's going to open up this other window where you have a bunch of other choices here. We don't need to insert a link. We don't need to insert a comment. We're going to insert a chart. This is where you're going to make your data table. Not your data table, but your graph. Click on that. Now let's watch what happens. Now this is what most of y'all have already seen happen. It automatically turns it into a line graph, and you're saying, Mr. Fortier, we're not supposed to make a line graph, we're supposed to make a bar graph. You're correct. I specifically asked for a bar graph. Now let's explain why this happened. When you're measuring time and you're trying to represent that in a graph, you always, or generally, represent time or measurement of time in a line graph. So this is why when we put in all these dates, all these time dates, Google Sheets automatically interpret that as that needs to be a line graph. And it makes sense. But the problem is we aren't as interested in, this as a line graph as much, even though this does give us an accurate representation of the information we want to look at. But we want to look at this in a bar graph form. So how do you do that? Well, some of you had figured this out, and you went over here, you said, oh, I'll just go over here where it says line charts. I see that there's a chart type that pops up here. I can click on that, and it gives me a drop-down menu. And then you immediately went to, hey, that's a bar graph right there. That's a histogram chart, but that's a bar graph. Well, the problem with this particular bar graph, if I click on it, you're going to see, it turns it into this type of information, which is almost purely dealing with the quantity, because when we're dealing with bar graphs, you're measuring quantity. But we want to look at quantity over time. So we're going to do a combo chart. So instead of choosing the histogram, or the pure histogram, we're going to go up here. We're going to click on this again. We're going to go down where it says line, and look where it does. It says right here, combo chart. That's what we want. We want to click on the line bar graph combo chart. So you click on that, and that's where you get your bar graph, the one you want. So now we have this bar graph. That answers how do you get the bar graph for the first assignment that we're working on. Second assignment that we're working on is trying to flatten the curve. So what am I expecting you to do? Well, I don't want you to have to rewrite every single bit of data that you've already done. I want you to take the data that you have, and let's see if we can take the actual data and start flattening that curve. Now, you're going to have to make up some of your own specified data, meaning you're going to it's not necessarily accurate data for what really happened, but we're going to kind of make up our own information to simulate what would happen if social distancing actually started to flatten the curve. The cool thing is, if you'll notice, that has already seeming to have started to happen right here. You get a couple of major spikes right here and here, but if you'll notice, you're already starting on a downward trend. And so we don't have to do a whole lot of extra stuff to make this actually look the way it's supposed to. Now, what I did was I went over here, all right, and I went to the last day, this day that was already included, and I added several more days to it. So April 8th was the last day that was in your data table. Now I went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more days to April 14th. And I started plugging in my own information. So 32,449 is already a downward trend. It's higher than 20,000 here, but it's already a downward trend from 43,000, which was the peak. So let's continue that trend. Let's jump down about 2,000 more for the next day. So put 30,000 in here. Here I went 25,000. Then I jumped down to 15, then 10, then 8, then 4. So at this point, I am quite literally flattening the curve. Okay? So we're bringing the numbers down per day, and we're flattening the curve. So once you put that information in, you go about the same method that I just used to make the first table. Okay, go ahead and include all of this information in your box. Now, if you don't want your graph to pop up right on top of the other graph, go ahead and slide it over here. All right, now we're going to insert our chart because it's going to base it on where you are. You're going to insert your chart now, right here, just like you did before. You go over here to the 3 lines, click on it, insert chart, and it's going to make it a line graph again. We're going to quickly fix that. Go down here, combo chart, and now we have our new chart. And now you have 2 charts side by side that you can look at and do the comparison of. This is the original chart. This is what it looks like if we start to flatten the curve. You can see that. Okay. Now you have 2 charts, just like we're asked for in your assignment.